We do not encounter at the forts of Datia those high ramparts that are a characteristic feature of other forts in India. Nor are the walls as thick to protect against cannonballs. Never was it found necessary to dig a deep moat to protect these buildings, and the reasons are not hard to find. The rulers of Datia were statesmanlike. They always signed a treaty of peace and friendship with an enemy who was more powerful, be they the Mughals or the British. And this is the reason Datia could enjoy long spells of peace and prosperity when art, literature, music could be patronized. The miniature paintings of Datia and the tradition of music are famous even today.
Datia in Madhya Pradesh is just 30 kilometers away from Jhansi in Uttar Pradesh. The fortified city is famous for its beautiful palaces, temples and cenotaphs. Quiet environs and small lakes hold a mirror to the buildings and lend it a quaint charm. One encounters here a confluence of different architectural styles. The history of Datia is entwined inextricably with the conflict between the later Mughals, Marathas and the British.
दतिया सैकड़ों वर्षों से कला, संस्कृति, इतिहास का एक प्रमुख केंद्र रहा है। बुंदेलखंड की एक प्रमुख रियासत दतिया थी और हमारे पूर्वज जो यहाँ के राजा महाराजा रहे, उन्होंने बहुत ही समृद्धशाली परंपराएं स्थापित की। मुगल बादशाहों से हमेशा हमारे रियासत के राजाओं के अच्छे संबंध रहे। औरंगज़ेब के दरबार में तो दतिया के महाराज दलपत राव का बहुत बड़ा स्थान था। हिंदू राजाओं में मिर्ज़ा राजा जय सिंह जो जयपुर के थे, उनके बाद द्वितीय स्थान महाराज दलपत राव दतिया का था। उन्हें 3000 की मनसब थी।
Datia was the original principality of the Bundel rulers. When Jahangir appointed Veer Singh Judeo the ruler of Orcha, he gave Datia to his younger son. The alliance with the Mughals kept the rulers of Datia in constant conflict with the Marathas in the 18th century. At the turn of the 19th century, Datia made peace with the British and received their protection.
आज तक कोई भी इस किले को जीत नहीं पाया। इस संबंध में कड़खा प्रचलित है कि दतिया दलपत राव की जीत सके ना कोई, जो जाए जीतन चहे सो अदफर फजीयत हो। तो 360 वर्ष एक राजवंश को यहाँ पर शासन करते हो गया, लेकिन दतिया पर अनेक लोगों ने हमले किए। शुजाउद्दौला ने लखनऊ थे, उन्होंने भी हमला किया, गायकवाड़ ने हमला किया, मराठों ने हमला किया अनेक बार, लेकिन किले को जीत नहीं पाए। यहाँ तक कि दतिया के बिल्कुल निकटवर्ती प्रांत में मराठों की सेना आ गई थी और यहाँ से मुँह की खा के गई थी।
The rulers of Datia were protected by the Mughal emperors of Delhi, and that is the reason they never felt the need to make elaborate arrangements for the fort's defense. Thick, strong ramparts served a symbolic purpose, only proclaiming the majesty of the rulers. The fortification had very limited strategic significance.
युद्ध के क्षेत्र में भी हमारे सैनिक, हमारे पूर्वज जो थे, उनका बड़ा योगदान रहा। ज़्यादातर केंद्रीय सत्ता के साथ रहे। वहाँ जब आवश्यकता पड़ी तो दूर दूर तक युद्ध लड़ने गए। अफगानिस्तान में काबुल तक गए, दक्षिण भारत में, महाराष्ट्र में, यहाँ तक कि कर्नाटक, तमिलनाडु के हिस्से तक भी मुगल सेनाओं के साथ युद्ध किया। हमारे दतिया के जो 4 प्रथम राजा थे, महाराज भगवान राव, शुभकरण, दलपत राव और रामचंद्र, ये चारों के चारों अलग अलग लड़ाइयों में शहीद हुए, मारे गए।
Datia is a fortified city. The settlement is protected by the thick wall girdling it, and the entry gates were strongly armored. Datia free from worries, enjoyed exceptional peace and prosperity. Myriad cultural activities flourished here.
Datia was a literary center. Datia Library is a very famous library. It was reputed to be one of the best libraries in North India at that time. And the whole Pakhavaji Gharana developed there with Kudayam Singh Maharaj and people like that. And there was a whole business of Pakhavaj being done there.
This old fort is also called Veer Singh's Palace. Veer Singh Judeo had invited skilled craftsmen from different places to build it. Hindus and Muslims joined hands in the ambitious task, and that is the reason the building reflects the happy coexistence of different styles at one site.
The brave princes of Datia won fame on many battlefronts, most of them far removed from this place. At times they fought in Balkh and Badakhshan, Kabul and Kandahar, and on other they reached the forests of Arakan. They played a very significant role in the Mughal conquest of the Deccan. During their journeys, they encountered and were introduced to many building styles. Some of them are reflected in these fort palaces. Another interesting feature of these buildings is that not only can the visitor enjoy the beauty of the edifice, they also provide a vantage point to enjoy the natural beauty of the surroundings.
This building, following the canons of Hindu architecture, is shaped like a swastika. The diktats of Acharya Prashar have been followed to the minutest detail. In the middle is a 5-storied pavilion-like structure connected to 4 corners of the courtyard by wide galleries. Very few rooms today remain intact that can give some idea of the original beauty of this palace.
नई दिल्ली के जो आर्किटेक्ट थे सर एडवर्ड लचन्स, उन्होंने प्रेरणा लेकर और भारतीय संस्कृति के भारतीय स्थापत्य कला के कुछ फीचर्स नई दिल्ली के बिल्डिंग्स में शामिल करने की प्रेरणा उन्हें दतिया के वीर सिंह देव महल से मिली है। ये उनकी पुत्री ने अपने पिता की बायोग्राफी में लिखा हुआ है। नहीं तो वो मन बना के आए थे कि ये क्लासिकल यूरोपियन सिटी बनाएंगे नई दिल्ली को। उनका मन को बदला दतिया के पुराने महल ने, ये बहुत बड़ी चीज़ है।
There is an open courtyard with residential rooms around the majestic 5-storied pavilion. Galleries adorned with pillars add to its beauty. These galleries serve as pathways to reach the corners. They leave a deep impression on the visitor with their well-proportioned beauty. This kind of architecture, balancing different elements delicately, was pioneered in Datia. The top floor of the palace has open pavilions on four corners, adorned with circular domes. This characteristic feature of Bundelkhand that is encountered elsewhere also seems to have been perfected in Datia. The historian Havel held the view that though smaller in size, this palace outshines any palatial building in Fatehpur Sikri.
Fatehpur Sikri is Hindu architecture in Islamic settings. Datia is Muslim architecture in Hindu settings. Because if you see the art and architecture of it, it reminds you of Fatehpur Sikri. Because there are causeways on all four sides and they are joining with the square buildings. It has got domes, it has got arches. It looks not like that of Rajput, original Rajput architecture. So it is a kind of Islamic architecture and in a Hindu settings. With all kinds of glazed tiles, it looks fully Islamic architecture, but it was of course done by a Hindu Raja and a Rajput Raja.
One can see very fine stone carving work on the screens here. These served not merely as decoration, but as ornamental curtains protecting regal privacy. They also suited local climatic conditions, making the building cool and comfortable. It can be easily seen how difficult it must have been to work on the hard stone that has been used here.
Microcosm that a great ruler is creating. It's a world in miniature. And whatever the needs are, whatever physical needs, emotional needs, they are supposed to be met in that little confined space, which is forbidding from the outside but delightful inside and so on.
Inner spaces bear testimony to many creative innovations. Colored paintings adorn the walls at some places, and inlay work serves the same purpose elsewhere. The ceiling is decorated with scenes of the celestial romance of Radha and Krishna. The walls are covered with floral designs. Miniature alcoves in the Mughal style are also seen. Some innermost parts stand out due to stark geometric designs in Islamic manner, a device employed in mosques.
यहाँ सुख शांति रही और यहाँ काफ़ी विकास हुआ। यहाँ की जो दतिया स्कूल ऑफ पेंटिंग्स है वो मशहूर है, पूरे विश्व में प्रमुख संग्रहालयों में आपको देखने को मिलेगी और बहुत ही अच्छी स्तर की कला दतिया स्कूल ऑफ पेंटिंग्स मानी जाती है, जिसमें मुग़ल परंपरा के साथ साथ मालवा के परंपराओं का भी उसमें मिश्रण है और एक अलग ही एक स्टाइल है।
Datia paintings appear far more dynamic and vibrant than other miniatures. Softer pastel hues and lighter touches of the brush have imparted a seductive, fluid grace to figures. Softer emotions are evoked effectively.
The fort at Datia is not a solitary structure. It is, as a matter of fact, a cluster of 3 different forts built at different times. They reflect not only a blend of Mughal and Rajput building styles, they also illustrate the tastes and preferences of different rulers who built these or added to the structures. Another interesting feature of the fort at Datia is that these three forts were surrounded by a big rampart enclosing almost the entire city, and they are more in the nature of fortified palaces than just military structures. You could call them fortified palaces or palaces disguised as forts.
The fort called Bharatgarh is built inside the ramparts. Only ruins remain today of once majestic structures. This fort was built by the scion of the Bundela ruler of Bhanpur. Mardan Singh, in his line, resisted the British in 1857, and once the British power was restored, his citadel at Bhanpur was demolished by the victors. Bharatgarh too crumbled due to neglect and lack of repair.
When a fort crumbles, and forts do crumble, they're not there forever, you get a sense of the lack of permanence, right, which is all around us, to which we are all subject. Mir Sahab, दीदनी थी शिकस्तगी दिल की, क्या इमारत गमों ने ढाई है, right? When the thing sort of breaks and cracks and so on. He talks about his heart, but I mean, in fact, I mean, these imarats are subject to decay.
Rajgarh was built on a hilltop by Shubkaran in 1767. It is said that when he was visiting Panna, he fell in love with the palace called Rajgarh and decided then and there to replicate it in his state.
चिड़िया मारी राजा गोविंद सिंह बुंदेला ने गोविंद सिंह बुंदेला ने चुंगल चिड़िया मारी राजा गोविंद सिंह बुंदेला ने गोविंद सिंह बुंदेला ने
Gobind Singh Bundela shot a hippopotamus in Africa and inspired the bards to compose a song in his honor commemorating this event. His subjects took pride in the achievements of their ruler. Many memories of those feudal times come alive as we stand in the palaces of Datia.
The story of Datia Fort is an integral part of the most glorious chapter of the history of Mughal Empire. As Captain Sleeman once observed, Datia might have been a small principality, but the valor of its rulers was unmatched, and they had impressed with it the great Mughal emperors. Be it Jahangir, Shah Jahan or Aurangzeb, each one of them relied on the rulers of Datia in their hour of need, and in return honored them exceptionally and entrusted them with ever-increasing responsibilities. As we stand today in Datia, we can feel palpably the aura of that golden age.
The Darbar Hall is built in the colonial style and recalls the living room in a European palace. Large coloured portraits of rulers of Datia hang on its walls. A hall-like gallery has an interesting collection of hunting trophies. There was a time when this place dazzled with musical soirees and dance performances.
संस्कृति के मामले में हम बहुत समृद्ध रहे, धार्मिक परंपराओं के मामले में बहुत समृद्ध रहे। दतिया को छोटा वृंदावन भी कहा जाता है। यहाँ सैकड़ों मंदिर हैं जो विभिन्न राजाओं ने बनाए।
Bundela rulers were devout worshippers of Krishna and commissioned many beautiful shrines dedicated to him. The Bundela temples and the cenotaphs are similar in appearance. The cenotaphs, crested with canopies, were built in memory of rulers and other members of their families after their death. The interiors of the cenotaphs, the chhatris, are decorated in the same manner that was used in the palaces. The walls depict hunting scenes, celebration of festivals, and the pomp and pageantry of the court. The effort was made to ensure that the departed princes did not lack familiar environs in the other world. The desire for immortality is palpable.
They also, in a manner of speaking, try to tell you that everything, including royal grandeur and opulence and bravery and love, pass. That they were there one day and they are no longer there. These places are also reminders that one should not think that one is permanent.
Datia was once called the necklace of Bundelkhand, shining with priceless gems. No one knows when it slipped slowly from our memory into oblivion. It is a moving and pleasant experience to suddenly stumble upon this fort that is the inheritor to a rich and resplendent tradition. Natural beauty, historic buildings, and culture combine to recreate magic and allow us to relate with its glorious past.